Hey everybody, Nick and Oscar here. Today we are taking a look at these beastly lenses, the Laowa Proteus 2x Anamorphic for Super 35. These lenses all come in at a T2 aperture. They come in focal lengths from 28mm to 100mm with a 20 and a 135 on the way next year. They come in 3 different flare coatings. This silver stripe right here on the barrel denotes this is the neutral flare, or what they I think call silver flare version. There's a bronze coating that denotes the amber flare version, and a blue coating that denotes the blue flare version. So before I get into the lenses though, I want to do just a little bit of sort of housekeeping business for the channel. So this channel began as, and remains, something of a diary. As I'm going through the filmmaking process and working on my first feature film, I work things out in my head as much as possible, but I thought it might be helpful that if I was forced to focus my thoughts into a video form and present them to the public, that might help me work things out in a way that just can't be done in isolation. I know that sometimes that's been helpful for people. You guys have given me some great feedback, and a lot of you have said you really like the videos. I think sometimes that gets annoying for you guys. So I've seen a few comments recently saying like, hey, okay, you love the DZO film RL primes, you've made a bunch of videos about them, we get it. But the point is, maybe I don't get it yet, and I'm still trying to figure out the contours of how well this fits into my workflow, how exactly this puzzle piece fits into the puzzle of my filmmaking process. I'm not saying I don't want the feedback. I'm happy to hear it. Just know that I might not always make the change that you want. After all, this is sort of my diary. You guys have the opportunity to read it and comment on it, but it's ultimately for me to work things out and figure out things that are interesting and meaningful to me. But I do really appreciate all of you being here. Like I mentioned at the end of the last video, I must have hit some kind of threshold because suddenly a number of companies have contacted me saying, hey, we just noticed your channel. Is there anything you might like to see of our company? And one of those places was Laowa. They contacted me and said, hey, we noticed your channel. Is there anything of ours you'd like to see? And I really appreciated that that was sort of the extent of the communication. It wasn't, hey, you know, let's do a collaboration, you pick what you'd like, and then you have to agree that you'll make content in a certain period of time. Nothing like that. They just said, is there anything you want to see? I said, I'm really interested in your Proteus Anamorphics. They said, done. We'll send them to you. We'll get you a return label to send them back in a couple weeks. End of story. So I have tremendous respect for that approach. I don't really want to become a review channel. That's not the purpose of this channel, and it never will be. But I do love lenses and cinema gear and checking it all out. And so thank you, all of you, for giving me this opportunity to do so. And a big thanks to Laowa for the way that they approached the situation. So these lenses, why am I interested in these? Laowa is probably best known for being a very high quality lens maker that plays in kind of 2 spaces. One is the very budget space, lower budget lenses to achieve certain things, whether it's in the stills world or the cinema world. But their second sort of specialty is making niche lenses, lenses that simply aren't made elsewhere, like their series of probe lenses or their multiple X macro lenses that let you just get insanely close to a subject, and things like that. And Proteus doesn't quite fit in either of those 2 categories. Proteus is their attempt to make just a really genuinely good, serious cinema lens. Obviously anamorphic, it's 2x squeeze. It's rated as a Super 35 plus circle. The imaging circle of this is actually 33.7 millimeters. So the way I tend to try and shoot anamorphic, especially if I'm shooting on this V-Raptor here, is consider the image circle. So usual Super 35 anamorphics, most of them have a circle that's 31 millimeters in diameter. And again, the Proteus is slightly larger, I think 33.7. And so in that circle, typically your Super 35 sensors sit within it, and then you're going to record some portion of that that then gets stretched out or you recorded in a different format like a 6x5 so that when you de-stretched it was 2:3:9:1 or whatever. But what I like doing, since I'm not a fan of super wide aspect ratios, is try and use as much of the circle as I can. And it so happens that for your typical 31mm Super 35 anamorphic, the Red's full frame 1x1 mode perfectly intersects with the diameter of that circle. So you're using basically as much of the projected image as possible. It will de-squeeze to a 2x1, which is a wonderful ratio. Everything that I shot with the Proteus lenses was shot in that mode. It was the V-Raptor in full frame 8K 1x1 mode. So when you see an anamorphic lens and it says, I'm a Super 35 lens or I'm a Super 35 Plus lens, what you really want to do is consider, one, what is the actual image circle, and two, what is the mode that you want to try and shoot in? Because you may find that you can shoot full frame, basically. So I was shooting with the full height of this sensor and delivering what I think is a great image. So technical aspects aside, what do I think of the lenses? They're really lovely. So they deliver a classic 2x stretch. The bokeh looks really beautiful throughout the image. It's pretty consistent through most of the image with a little bit of cutting on the outsides. Not a crazy amount of cutting, so things like the Vazen 1.8s start to cut like crazy and you end up with bokeh that's kind of like sticks on the edges. In terms of bokeh, this might be a little bit more similar to something like an Atlas Orion, where it keeps a pretty good shape throughout. I want to show you a tiny little project we did with these lenses. I thought I'd recreate a scene from one of my favorite movies, shot largely on anamorphic, The Dark Knight. So here is a quick little spoof scene shot entirely on the Laowa Proteus 35 and 85mm T2 anamorphics.
It's bedtime. What are you still doing here?
Evening, Commissioner.
Hey, come on, it's bedtime. Go upstairs, brush your teeth.
Oh, you like my teeth, do you? All the better to eat you with, my dear.
If you're gonna play games, I'm gonna get your father.
The old good cop, bad cop routine?
Not exactly.
Where are the Legos?
Well, what time is it?
It's bedtime. You know that.
Depending what time it is, the Legos could be in separate places.
No. You couldn't. How?
Well, I had a little friend help me.
Stepping on Legos is my greatest weakness. Why do you want to hurt me?
Me? I don't want to hurt you. You complete me. I just want to stay up and play Legos all night.
No. It's bedtime. I'm gonna put you in a room with a padded mattress, and you're gonna sleep all night long.
I won't go to bed. I will never, ever, 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 ever.
Okay, so a huge thanks to my wife and my son and my daughter for playing those parts for me. That was a pretty spontaneous sort of thing. So yesterday afternoon, I wrote up a few pages of a script just to have something to sort of work off of, and it was good practice anyway. I haven't done quite enough script writing, and so it was helpful to do it. And we shot it over the course of like 2 hours or so, just getting those few quick shots, putting on all of our makeup and costumes and stuff. It was super fun, and the kids did a wonderful job. Not crazy complex of a scene. I put those little LED candles in the background to have some kind of bokeh for you guys to see. We didn't do a whole lot of scene preparation or anything like that. We did a couple different lighting scenarios, which the original scene in The Dark Knight has. Most of the shots were actually on the 35. I originally thought we'd try and sort of use both lenses equally. But one thing that's really great about these lenses is some outstanding close focus. So this 35 focuses as close as 1'10", which is awesome. You can get real nice and close. You know, that's not far from most spherical lenses. The 85 focuses to 2'8", which is also fantastic. Both of them open up to T2. And you know me, if the lens is any good wide open, I'm gonna shoot it there most of the time, which is exactly what I did. Every frame that I've shot so far on these things has been at T2 because it is perfectly usable and it does a really, really great job. The lenses are pretty clean for anamorphic. You get a decent amount of character just with the shape of the bokeh and the way that anamorphic lenses breathe, but you don't get a ton of like chromatic aberration color fringing, which actually I don't like to see anyway. So that's one area in which I would say I would actually prefer these Proteus lenses. I didn't see very much in the way of chromatic aberration. If you look at the frames of my wife's sunglasses or her hair against the bright sky, you're not seeing any of that really intense blue or purple fringing. If you push hard enough or you look closely enough, you'll see some, but in my experience, it's been a lot less than what you can see on some other comparable lenses of this type. The one place that I wish they performed differently was in terms of flare. You'll notice that in all the test shots I showed you here, there's very little in the way of flare at all, and it's because these lenses barely flare. And when they do, it's generally just a horizontal streak that kind of goes across the whole frame. That's sort of a weakness of most modern budget anamorphics, is that's what the flare is going to look like. And some people like that. Me personally, my favorite flare is going to be in something like the Panavision C series or the Zelmis Apollo, where you get a horizontal streak that doesn't actually cover the whole frame, but has a bunch of little striations, blobs, diagonal elements, the little bunny ears on the Panavision C series. You'll get these like two little things that show up everywhere. I like those kind of things. That's what I would go to anamorphic for, in part. I really like that, but these guys don't do it. But that's really a taste thing. In every other respect, these perform really nicely and turn out an image that I'm very happy with. They are huge, right? These are big, beefy lenses. And whereas the Arl primes were already sort of hitting my limit of what am I reasonably comfortable hand holding for extended periods, these are obviously much, much larger. And so I did do some hand holding for the shots outdoors with my wife, but you're not going to use this all day without some kind of support, or without swapping this body for like a little mirrorless, but then, you know, you're making compromises in other ways. So if you want to shoot with these lenses, you probably want to be in a setting where you have some kind of help. What else is there to say about these? What they represent in terms of the company Laowa and what they're doing for filmmakers, I think this is a really important entry into the market. So Laowa is saying, we're listening to what filmmakers want, and we're going to try and put significant resources into making that. And so for that reason alone, I love that they exist. I think they'll make a lot of people happy on a lot of projects. These cost about $5,000 per lens, so they're about half the price or less than something like an Atlas Orion or Atlas Mercury, and they're readily available. They're really well built. Everything's great. Nothing to complain about in terms of mechanics. The flange depth isn't too long back here, so this is another reason you might choose Proteus over going with something like Laowa's nanomorphs and trying to add an adapter. In addition to just the simplicity of having a single focus solution with one integrated piece, you also get better flange depth here. The nanomorphs all protrude so far back that you can't use a PL adapter if you're using the PL nanomorphs. That has a VND. But this will work just fine on my Breakthrough VND. Really great lenses, really happy with the company. So hopefully that's helpful to you. So again, as this is kind of my diary working things out, I really enjoyed using these lenses. I think they have merits that will really speak to a lot of people. And I really look forward to seeing more stuff from Laowa in the future. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.